is engaged to be married.
I know.
It's very lovely. And
Thank
you're
you.
not wearing
I don't
your
have my ring on because the stone was loose.
Yeah, and when you had to get it
Had to get
soldered
it-
together.
yeah.
So exciting.
I know. Thank you.
I'm campaigning.
Campaigning.
I need you to have a wedding because I need to be the maid of honor.
No.
Please.
No, never.
Seriously.
Never. Not going to happen.
We could go to Vegas.
Well, and most people are surprised because I'm so quiet about my personal life. I don't ever say anything.
I know.
about my
Cindy
personal
even
life.
just said when we brought this up, she's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
did I know this?
Well, and I was completely shocked
Did you
when
meet
it
him on
happened.
the internet? No.
Yeah. No. Known him
You know him
forever.
Forever. Since
Country
when?
guy since probably 1987, I think.
And he has my approval. He's my friend.
He does. He loves you. He loves
Yeah,
Shane.
love him too. He's hilarious.
Yes.
But
But I'm just not a.
and his dog.
I lived through a wedding, a very large, actually two. Oh my God.
Hi, boo.
Very large, dramatic weddings that ended very badly. So it's not about the wedding, young girls.
No,
It's about.
It's not. It's really not.
It's about the marriage.
It
So
is,
I'm
it
at a
is.
different point in my life.
Although
now.
I do think it'd be super cool to get married by Elvis.
Yeah, maybe, but no.
Why? Fine.
No, I have to say, after my friend Mark found out, he threatened my life if I didn't have him be the one who made it legal, like sign the document.
Well, then Mark Schwartz gets to dress like Elvis. Okay, now that we can do.
Okay,
Please.
that would be hilarious. We'd have to get Mark to dress like
Elvis.
Elvis. Yeah, he would. You know,
He totally would.
he kind of looks like a young Elvis
He
anyway.
kind of does. Yeah. That's fun.
That would be hilarious. But yeah, so thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, I'm excited.
thrilled.
I love Bubba. He's great. Stinky's pretty great too.
Oh, don't get me started on his dog, but
He's a little much.
Yeah.
But Jack Russell Terriers usually are. But they're sweet. And dogs are dogs, and we love dogs.
yeah,
but
we love dogs.
I'm really excited about today's show.
Me too.
I have a very, how do I say it? I think a lot of Dr. Bosshardt, just as a person, he's a great plastic surgeon. He's done so many wonderful things.
He was my plastic
Yes,
surgeon.
and
been
he's done
mine.
some really great humanitarian things.
Yeah.
But he's got such a strong ideology, a strong sense of self. He's very authentic, and he says what he thinks. And he's highly intelligent, so he's very well spoken, and people
Yeah.
listen. And I think that's amazing. So I'm excited.
Welcome to the Style Podcast, presented by Plaza Cadillac and Plaza Lincoln, where our drive to be the best starts with you.
Bring some holiday cheer to your garage during the Lincoln Wishlist event. Take advantage of special offers like 0 down and 0% APR for 48 months on our award-winning lineup of luxury SUVs. Or choose Lincoln incentives of $4,000 on Corsair and $6,000 on Nautilus, Motor Trend's 2025 SUV of the Year. We also have a wide selection of certified pre-owned with a 6-year, 100,000-mile warranty and financing as low as 4.49%. Plaza Lincoln, across from the Leesburg Airport. Our drive to be the best starts with you.
Thank you for joining us on the Style Podcast. We'd like to thank our presenting sponsors, Plaza Cadillac and Plaza Lincoln. And today we're honored to have with us retired plastic surgeon, Dr. Richard Bosshardt. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
We were talking a little bit before we got going on this that you were actually the very first plastic surgeon in Lake County.
That is correct. I
How
was.
cool is that?
I didn't do that intentionally. It just happened.
Were you from here originally?
No,
No.
I grew up in Miami.
Okay.
Well, that's what we want to know. How did you find Lake County to be the first plastic surgeon here?
Well, I've been a Floridian most of my life. I grew up in South Florida. Miami, I consider my hometown. Not my place of birth, but my hometown nonetheless. And that's where I did most of my education and training, including my plastic surgery training.
Are you a Hurricanes fan? Are you a Hurricanes fan?
Oh, absolutely.
He's a hurricane.
Go Canes. Thursday's going to be
Listen,
big.
I know it's really hard for me, but I did root for you. I'm a Florida State fan, but I have to tell you, it's really nice to see the ACC beat somebody in the SEC because I hear it constantly.
After 20 years of almost there, to see the Miami
They
team
did
back
great.
again is kind of fun to see. Plus, it gives you something to root for in the postseason.
Yeah.
But when I wanted to go into practice, Miami is saturated with plastic surgeons. And the last thing I wanted to do is do all these years of training and then be competing for a small piece of a pie in a place that didn't need another plastic surgeon. And so I actually sent out a bunch of letters all through the state. I also checked a couple of other places outside the state, but I wanted to stay in Florida. And one place that responded was actually Waterman Hospital, when it was the old hospital in Eustis. And we came up, and I don't want to make a long story of it, but I interviewed at a number of places and checked out. And ultimately, it came down to a place where I could start my own practice, put my signature on it as opposed to joining somebody. And if you want to know, the really interesting part is that it came down to two places, Panama City and Eustis. Eustis, Leesburg, Golden Triangle, whatever, Lake County. And so the ultimate decision was between going into an established practice in Panama City or starting my own. And when I got off the plane in Panama City, the first thing I smelled was the paper mill. Which, if you ever smell the paper mill.
Oh, yeah.
Like in
I didn't even think about
Placa,
that.
it is
And
not
when
a good
I
smell.
walked out of my friend's house in Eustis the first morning, what I smelled was orange blossoms.
Orange blossoms,
And I
yeah.
wanted to live in a place that smelled like orange blossoms. 35 years later, here I am,
you
retired
go.
after a full career in Lake County.
That's a great story,
That is
though.
a great story.
I love
And
the
those
orange
pulp
blossom
mills
smells
are-
either.
That smell, it's very distinct.
Yeah,
It's not good.
Unfortunately, the orange globes are largely gone, but
they are.
I know. We paved them
Still.
over.
it got us here, so here we go.
Where was your wife from originally? Was it a hard sell for her?
She's actually a born Floridian. She's
she?
she's a true native. She's born in Orlando.
Oh, cool. Shayna and I are both natives too,
natives
so
too.
we
Born and raised
born
here.
here and stayed
Yeah.
here, so it's important to us.
We grew up in South Miami. Her sister and I share the same birthday, went to the same high school class, and blah, blah, blah. And her sister and my sister were kind of the two that put us together. So stay in Florida was an easy decision because we had a lot of family and connections here, so it worked out well.
It's a beautiful place to live, too. I love
It
it.
is. And you had a very successable practice for a lot of years. I was one of your patients, I told you earlier, a long time ago, and didn't
My lips
expect
are
you to
sealed.
remember. That's right. But a very successful practice. So what's taking up your time now that you're retired?
Oh boy. Well, it's an interesting, retirement is an interesting thing because you go from having a very, very busy life that's very regimented and very scheduled to one day waking up and there's nothing calling on you that you have to do. You can do whatever you want. And fortunately, I have a couple of significant interests. One of my biggest interests is in writing. And throughout my medical career, I did a lot of writing for 25 years. I wrote a weekly column in the Orlando Sentinel called House Calls that was pretty well received. And when they closed down the Lake Sentinel and the Orange County version of the Orlando Sentinel, they got rid of all of us
I remember
writers.
that.
I used to read your articles,
Well,
yeah.
My dad, Frank Stanfield, was an editor with the Lake Sentinel for many, 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 many years. But
I got to know Frank through that and through, of course, attending the same
church.
Yeah, but so writing has been big. And so, of course, now I have a blog. I've written a book, self-published a book. I'm working on a second one, and I'm hoping to get someone to publish the second one. So
What's
I'll try
your
to
book
find a
about?
publisher for the first. Guess plastic surgery.
Yes, okay.
Say what would you know about?
Well, I didn't know if you'd done something like crazy in your youth you wanted to share.
Well, it was crazy in the sense that it's a surprise to me sometimes that I actually was successful in achieving becoming a plastic surgeon, much less 35-year career, and for reasons that completely befuddle me. I had the privilege, extreme privilege, of training under one of the icons in plastic surgery, Dr. Ralph Millard in Miami. Back in the end of his career, he's deceased now, but toward the end of his career, he was voted one of the top 10 plastic surgeons of the millennium by plastic surgeons.
Wow.
And extremely difficult, irascible, crusty old curmudgeon to train under. Made it the hardest 2 years of my life. But those 2 years were foundational, of course, in my practice, and unique because of him. And I thought, that's a really interesting story to tell. And so I decided to put those 2 years into, I guess you'd call it a memoir, memoir of my training. And the other thing that's interesting is plastic surgery is, I think a lot of people would agree, perhaps the most fascinating area of medicine.
I agree.
Because of the nature of everything from cosmetics to reconstruction to now to things like face transplants and so forth. And yet it's probably the most misunderstood of all. If you talk to most people, including a lot of doctors, the impression is that plastic surgery is a nip and tuck specialty. We're doing unnecessary operations on vain, frivolous people that don't need to have this stuff done. and it's kind of a waste of all the years of surgical training. And so I wanted to try to dispel a lot of those things because it's probably the broadest of all the surgical specialties. We work from the head to the toe. We work with neurosurgeons, we work with chest surgeons, we work with abdominal surgeons, we work with orthopedic surgeons. We have all of our own particular things. We do hand surgery. Of course, people are familiar with the cleft lip and palate work that we do. So in terms of the breadth of the specialty, I don't think there's anything comes close to it.
You've done, now you volunteered overseas, correct?
I have,
and did the cleft lip and palate surgery on children. Was it adults too, or just children?
Oh gosh, it was everything.
was everybody, yeah.
You will never see an adult in this country with an unrepaired cleft lip or palate, but you'll see a lot of teenagers and young adults that had never had the surgery done in overseas work.
Where did you do that at? Where was that?
Oh gosh, I did. Philippines was the very first one. I've been to Philippines, Guatemala, Venezuela, Peru, Mexico. I've done 3 mission trips to the West Bank in Palestine. That was a very interesting place to work. Brazil. So I worked in a lot of different.
What was it like working in countries like that as compared to your sterile, beautiful, amazing facilities that you have here to do surgery in?
Oh boy! Well, one thing you learn to do without. All these things that in the U.S. you think are essential become really unnecessary. You have to be very adaptable. You have to have a little bit of MacGyver in you to be able to do these things. I remember trying to rack my brain trying to figure ways to do out without certain instruments, in certain operations. Things that you think are essential, like suction, like cautery. Oftentimes, good lighting. Sometimes you're working largely through an open window. Clearly, we don't do ORs with open windows in this country. But you're working with headlights. In the early years, they didn't have really great headlights. They're much, much better today. But you're working with little battery-powered headlights, trying to work down in the throat of a small child sometimes, and it can be really an interesting challenge to see what you're doing. And then, without suction, you have to deal with bleeding and fluids and so forth. And you realize how these little things that you take for granted in the U.S. become so critical. We use a lot of disposables here. Well, disposable doesn't exist in many places. Where I've got pictures of racks of surgical gloves hanging, drying.
Really?
These are gloves that we just throw away, but they reuse them. Tubes that are put into the throat, and the tracheal tubes for anesthesia, they're disposable. And they reuse them, they clean them and reuse them. So I've done surgery where you've had no air conditioning. You have to work in your shirt sleeves because if you put a gown on, you would be sweating through it in 5 minutes. I've watched geckos crawling across the wall,
Oh my gosh.
But you
The things we take for granted here.
You can hear the birds sing, which
Yeah.
is nice sometimes
there you go.
outside. We had one in Guatemala. We worked in a very, very small rural hospital. And they had to leave one OR available for emergencies, so we could only use one OR. So we put 2 operating tables into that one OR. So we had 2 surgeons working simultaneously. We didn't have any kind of a sterilizing machine, a sterilizer. So what we had to do is we set up a series of basins with sterilizing solution, and we would just transfer instruments from one to the other, progressively cleaner and cleaner until we got to where we could do that. That was probably the most rewarding, challenging, enjoyable, stressful work that I did in my entire practice. And without taking anything away from the practice in Lake County, I did things there that I would never do. Most surgeons will never go out and do a cleft lip or palate when they go in practice because in this country, they all go to the big university centers where they have big clinics. They don't have that overseas. So in a week or 2 weeks of operating, I would do more cleft lips and palates than most surgeons would do in a career.
Wow.
And that was, Venezuela is big in the news right now.
Yes,
They are.
it
I
is.
did 3 trips to Venezuela and worked with a wonderful plastic surgeon in Venezuela and saw exactly what was going on with Hugo Chavez, running the country, how he ran into the ground. From 2000 to 2006 and 2007 were the 3 years that I went. The degrading decline in the entire country and the economy was incredible.
Well, we're going to take a break right there, but we'll be right back because I want to start off with that when we come back, you telling us what you saw in the time that you were there and how it declined. We'll be right back.
Luxury awaits during our season's best sales event. Now is the best time to take home a new Cadillac with 2.9% APR and $2,000 savings on our best-selling lineup of electric vehicles. Or take home one of our legendary gas SUVs or sedans, also with these attractive seasonal offers. Plaza owners enjoy benefits like 4 years of free maintenance, free car washes, and more. Come experience the Plaza difference today. Plaza Cadillac across from the Leesburg Airport. Our drive to be the best starts with you.
Welcome back to the Style Podcast. We're talking with retired plastic surgeon, Dr. Richard Bosshardt. Thank you again for joining us. We left off with the Venezuela conversation. So let's get back into that, where you have been there doing some surgeries over the years and you've watched it decline over the years.
Significant decline, yes. Our first invitation came in 1999. I was working with a group called Operation Rainbow at the time that was doing overseas mission work for plastic surgery, based out of Houston, Texas. And they would be invited by countries to come in. So we would first send over a team to do a site visit to see what the resources were and what the OR was like and so forth. So I was on that site visit. That was the first time I did that. And then we came back for a mission. And the inviting surgeon was Dr. Anna Velasquez Imanian. She was just an incredible woman, married to an American, Mark Mannion. And she had established what I consider to be the most comprehensive cleft clinic I've ever seen outside the U.S. And so she would take over the hospital for 2 weeks every year, and she'd bring in indigent children. They'd be collecting names and so forth. And she would invite, we were there. I was there with another surgeon. It was her. There was 4 of us. There was a maxillofacial surgeon herself, me, and another plastic surgeon. And they would set up the rooms, and we would just boom, 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 I would do 4, 5, 6 cleft lips and palates in a day, which is pretty exhausting. We do this for 4 or 5 days in a row, and do this several days, straight, and then take a day or two for R&R. But what happened was, we had planned to have that become a regular thing because it was such a well-run clinic, and we really felt like we could do a lot of good doing that. And Venezuela was very welcoming, in spite of the Chavez, leadership. The Venezuelans were unbelievably welcoming and friendly. They liked Americans. We had more volunteers than we knew what to do with at the hospital. And one thing they had wanted was to make this an ongoing kind of a collaboration, not just a one-time visit. They didn't want a bunch of Americans coming in, doing a bunch of surgeries and flying away and leaving them with all this to deal with. But then what happened? 9/11 hit. Mm-hmm. And overseas mission work just ceased for a couple of years. And I went back again on my own. I took my daughter with me and went down there to work with her at her invitation in 2006, so 6 years later. The difference was unbelievable. I mean, what had happened was that the government came in, and she was the head of a hospital, of a surgical department in the hospital, and involved in training surgical residents to become surgeons. And of course, doctors were in short supply. The government came in and said, you need to start putting people through faster, and you can't be dropping anybody. You got to accept everybody and put them on through. And she would not compromise. She would not do that. And they took away her clinic. They took away her position as the department head, and they took away her hospital privileges for several years. And you could see around you just a decline in the overall. Just the look of the country was different. Things weren't being maintained. The stores were significantly empty of food and things like that. One of the things I remember, in fact, this is something I'm working on another article on. The Chavez administration bragged that they had universal free health care for all Venezuelans. The reality was that the hospitals had nothing. I mean, nothing. like I said, they were reusing disposable items. Drugs, antibiotics were really hard to come by. And the one thing that really, really hit me was when I was told that if a person came in that needed to have a hip replacement, okay, you have to put in a hip prosthesis. Hospitals didn't have any hip prostheses. So what the doctor would do is the orthopedic surgeon would give the patient a prescription for the prosthesis they needed, the size and everything. That individual had to go out on the black market and find that prosthesis on the black market.
And buy their own?
And
It's like eBay. for
Yeah.
and
prosthesis.
purchase it and bring it back to the hospital, and they would sterilize
I didn't even
it.
know you could buy a.
Okay, so I
hip or
just
They would
need,
put it in. So yeah, they had universal health care, but it was
we need to point that out.
in
That
name only.
that's the thing. I think everybody thinks. I don't think people realize how good they have it.
Yeah.
Here, we
Oh,
did
we
a
have no clue.
no.
Yeah.
We did a
Especially
podcast.
if you've never been to another country.
No,
like
and
that.
we just did a podcast recently with a friend of ours, Simona. She is from Czechoslovakia, and her family it's the most amazing story. It was like a spy novel to listen to her talk, but she gets it, but she's lived through it, and their escape here, and everything they had to go through, and the idea of everybody getting free healthcare is, oh, that's great. It's not.
No, it's not feasible.
It's just not.
My staff and even the hospital staff would notice that for weeks and weeks after I came back from a trip, I would not complain about anything.
Yeah,
I was just so happy to be back and having my comfort zone back.
I'm sure.
Well, and that is one of the things and one of the reasons I wanted to have you as a guest so much is that over the past few years, especially since COVID, and then some other things, you've been a guest on Tucker Carlson, and you're so well spoken and well written, and so when I would see you post things on Facebook, I was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I
Look at the
actually saw
intelligent
you when you
point
were on
he's
Tucker
making
Carlson,
and
yeah.
all these things. So tell us a little bit. How did you get to Tucker Carlson?
Well, okay. I'm going to condense this substantially.
Okay.
I am my official title is Richard Bosshardt, MD, FACS. That FACS stands for Fellow of the American College of Surgeons. And that is a kind of an honorary type of a thing to have after your name, would signify that you have been approved as a fellow in the oldest and largest organization in the world that represents excellence in plastic surgery. And I've always been very proud of that. You have to be referred by other ACS surgeons. You have to present a clean record of surgery, and you go through an induction process, almost like a college, induction or graduation ceremony, the whole cap and gown formality and all that. So for many, many years, I practiced with that FACS after my name. And I would be peripherally, I wasn't really involved directly with the ACS because I was just too busy. Plus, I was involved with my specialty, plastic surgery organizations. And then came 2020, and there have been a couple little things going on that concern me about the ACS deviating from their focus on excellence in surgery to focusing on things like diversity and equity and inclusion, what we now label DEI. And I had gotten a hint of that. And that went full-blown pedal to the metal in 2020 with George Floyd being killed in Minnesota. And that was in May or June of that year. And the ACS established a task force on racism, which they said was to deal with the problem of structural racism in the ACS. It wasn't, is there racism in the S? It's, we've got to deal with it. And so they went so far as to claim that surgeons were racists and surgery was discriminatory, and the ACS was discriminatory. And they even made the claim, which is based on something really, really appalling called racial concordance. So you familiar with that?
No.
I'm not.
Concordance simply says that, if you go see a doctor, you'll get better care if that doctor is the same color or ethnicity as you are.
Okay.
I have heard about that. I just
That's
didn't
what
realize
it
that's
said.
I just know the word, yeah.
And the ACS was saying that the results for surgery are better in minorities if their surgeon is from a minority. I took big issue with this. Mm-hmm. So I protested in a number of ways, one of which was to put a post in the discussion forum for the ACS, in the ACS website, which generated the largest engagement of any post ever in the history of the ACS. That brought me to the attention of the ACS leadership. They met with me in a Zoom call, and shortly after that Zoom call, they banned me for life. They denied me access to the forum for any further discussion.
They took your designation away?
No, they didn't. This was interesting. If they had kicked me out, I could have had probably grounds for a lawsuit.
Okay.
They didn't kick me out. They said I was still in good standing, but I couldn't get access to the website discussion
You're
forum.
in good standing, but you can't discuss
You
anything
just have to be
anymore.
quiet.
They basically silenced
Yeah,
me.
they did.
I couldn't have access to the members directory. I
Wow.
couldn't send or receive private messages. And so I fought back. And the one way I fought back, I learned of an organization called Do No Harm, which people really need to learn more about. It's an incredible organization. I'm now not only a senior fellow, but I'm also one of the board of directors of Do No Harm. And I contacted the founder of Do No Harm and said, hey, I explained my situation and said, what can we do? And they helped me I drafted an article which they helped me get into the Wall Street Journal called Critical Race Theory is Bad Medicine. That was the title of it. You can look it up. Wall Street Journal, put my name, pull it right up.
Okay.
And as a result of that, I got the attention of Tucker Carlson. So I got an invitation to go on his show when he was in Fox, okay? I turned it down.
Did you?
And I turned it down because a good friend of mine who is very, very, very well connected in the industry said, yeah, you want to be careful because, you're going to get painted with the same brush as Tucker Carlson if you go on his show. And I wasn't sure I wanted to do that yet. So I kept working within the ACS, trying to see if I could get this ban reversed or at least find out why. They told me I was being disrespectful in the ACS, and they wouldn't tell me one example of anything I said that was disrespectful.
No, you just went against the status
And
quo.
so I said I can't work within the ACS. I went back to contacted Tucker's people, and they had me on Fox. And this was interesting because I'd never been on a radio show before. So I'm in a small studio in Orlando. He's up in wherever he is up north. I'm looking at a blinking red light, and I can't see him. I can just hear him. And I didn't really prepare. So, I didn't get a chance to say what I wanted to say before I had to be cut off. I remember he said, oh, this is really important. I really want to go into this. We'll have to do this at another time. Well, he left Fox or got kicked out of Fox not long after that. So a year and a half go by, and he gets his podcast going. So I said, hey, Tucker, are you still interested? And he said, yeah, sure. So I went down to his studio in Florida, down on the West Coast, and did his show. And the rest, as they say, is history. I did an hour, 15-minute segment with him.
You got to say what you didn't want to say.
I got to say what I want to say. I got, he got several 100,000 views on that, which was nice. And I had invitations to other podcasts and so forth. I've been able to, through my connection with Do No Harm and my own, passionate battle with the ACS about this whole thing, I've been able to get published in a lot of different National Review, City Journal, Washington Examiner, and some others. And so I've had this ongoing fight with the ACS to try to get my ban reversed and my rights restored, and to publicize the fact that the ACS has become this ideologically charged organization that is promoting racial identity and racial discrimination in places where it doesn't exist, pushing for quotas of surgeons of certain ethnicities.
Instead of
and
basing it
minorities.
on qualifications and
Instead of-
skill.
And that goes to the issue of quality of surgery, which is my biggest issue. This year, I went to the ACS Clinical Congress in Chicago in October, and it was going to be my last hurrah because I'm just tired of beating my head against the wall. But I wanted to meet directly with some of these leaders who have been instrumental in banning me. And I was able to do that. I met with 3 of the leaders of the ACS who wanted nothing to do with me. It was like I was radioactive. The interesting, I wouldn't say funny, but the interesting thing is that within weeks of my confronting these leaders about my ban on these communities, they shut down the communities altogether. So without any kind of a canvassing of the membership, the ACS leadership has simply silenced the entire 93,000 members of the ACS community of surgeons. There's no way for them to discuss among themselves on the ACS website any longer. It's gone. And of course, with the community's discussion forum gone, my attempt to get back on them is moot. So they pretty much eliminated my reason for fighting.
Wow.
So my cause célèbre now is not that, it's the decline in surgery, which I think is a really scary issue. And what really troubles me is it's not being discussed, it's not being talked about in the news media, online. It is being discussed within the ACS. We know there's a tremendous shortage of surgeons and that the quality of surgeons is going down.
Well, we're gonna take another quick break, and when we come back from the break, we're gonna pick up where we left off with that as well. We don't want to silence you here on the Style Podcast.
I'm used to being silenced.
Get all the Social Security disability benefits you deserve with disability consultant Jeff Bell. Our experienced Florida certified ADR handle claims on a contingency fee basis, meaning you don't pay unless we recover money for you. We have established a strong reputation as a firm that cares and provides the best care to its clients. Call us today or visit cbell.com.
Welcome back to the Style Podcast. We've got Dr. Richard Bosshardt with us today. We are thrilled because you have been on so many other platforms like Tucker Carlson, and you've been published. So we are thrilled that you are with us today and joined us today. But we wanted to pick right back up where we left off with your
fight to
change, be heard.
Yes.
Well, my ban, my silencing by my professional organization became a non-issue when they eliminated the discussion forum from which I was banned. Totally, they eliminated it from the
So they silenced
institution.
everybody.
So they silenced everybody. So I had to change direction a little bit, change gears, but it wasn't a radical change because I'd already been going this direction anyway. And that is that I've been seeing a decline in the quality of surgery and surgeons and surgical training. And it's not just me. I mean, it's out there. The American College of Surgeons realizes this. They've even initiated mentoring programs to mentor young surgeons by finding experienced surgeons to help them come up to speed, if you will, in their early surgical
And
practices.
this is surgery across the board, not just plastics.
This is, general surgery is a foundational surgical specialty from which almost all specialties then branch out. I was a general surgeon before I became a plastic surgeon, for example. So general surgery kind of serves as the feeder for a lot of specialties. So as goes general surgery, so goes a lot of other surgical specialties. So that's the one that I've been kind of focusing on the most at the moment. And I was, as I was saying, 80% of surgeons coming out of training today do not go out into practice. They go into what are called fellowships, which are additional year to multi-year additional training, and usually in a specialty. It could be plastic surgery, it could be cardiac surgery, it could be vascular, it could be oncologic. And so you think, okay, well, that because they have that passion, that interest, and that's perfectly okay. But if you ask them why they do this, more than half of them, and these are taken from surveys, more than half of them say they don't feel competent or comfortable going out into practice, even after 5 years of general surgery training. And for a surgeon to complete 5 years of intensive surgery training, which should allow them to go out and practice. I did that. I went out as a general surgeon after 5 years and felt perfectly qualified to practice without supervision and independently and all that. Of course, we're talking back in 1984. For that to be happening now tells you there's something wrong with surgical training. And there's a number of things that are going on. One is the reduced standards, everything from the reduced standards for getting into medical school, reduced standards for getting into surgical residencies. And one of the most negative effects of the whole DEI industry, this diversity, equity, inclusion industry, is that if you have almost all medical schools, almost all university centers have DEI administrators, DEI, some call them commissars, the people that run the DEI programs. And if you get a minority surgical trainee who's not cutting it, no pun intended, they're just not up to speed, and instead of, in the past, they would be dropped from the program, or they'd be told, no, you need to go back and do another year, and we need to get you up to speed. if you do that, now what happens is you're going to get complaints lodged to the DEI establishment. They're going to come back and they're going to call the attending surgeon a racist or discriminatory or something. And so, and I had this from personal communication with people that are in training programs. They're fearful of holding anybody back. They won't hold people back anymore because the repercussions are just not tolerable for them. And so they put people through that aren't really qualified to be doing that. Now, you can do that in a lot of industries, but, they talk about pilots in the airline industry. Well, it's similar. You don't want your pilot being selected because they have a certain
No.
color.
I need him to be the best pilot.
Yeah.
Him or the air traffic control
That's right.
person.
Right.
And you want your surgeon to be,
Yeah.
Yeah.
at a minimum, as competent as anybody else, but you really want them to be excellent.
Right.
And here's the other side of the coin that people don't really talk about too much is if I was a minority surgeon, I would not want someone looking at me thinking, boy, is he here because of his hard work and his excellence?
Thank
Or is
you.
he here because they lowered the standards to let him get here?
I've
Right.
said that all along. I said that earlier when we were talking before. It's the same. I feel I kind of equate it when someone says, "Oh, the first female," or no. I'm a person. I might be a female, but I never want someone to hand me something because I need to fill a quota for there being that number of females. I want it
Exactly.
because of I'm.
You
good
don't
at
want it
what I
because you're a
do.
woman. You want it because you're good or
I'm
the
the
best
best
at what you do.
qualified
The best
person.
qualified person.
When I had my comment thread going in the ACS website before I was banned, I was also able to receive private messages and send private messages. And I was amazed at how many minority and women surgeons contacted me and said they agreed with me. They agreed with my objection to the ACS taking this direction, but they did not feel they could speak publicly because their own peers would come down on them. If a black surgeon says, "Hey, I'm a surgeon. I'm not a black surgeon. I'm a surgeon. I don't want to be known as a black surgeon." Well, blacks around them would come and say, "Well, you're a traitor to our identity group, if you will." What's his name? Larry Elder. I love Larry
I do
Elder.
too.
Larry Elder called himself the black face of white supremacy. 'Cause
He is so.
a lot of his black demographic hates him because he's conservative and he doesn't toe the DEI party line. So I saw a lot of that in the ACS, but it wasn't out there in public because they couldn't deal with the blowback that would come if they said those things. I didn't care. My wife says I've lost my filters as I've gotten older.
I think that happens to all of us as we get
I'm
Some
at
of
a
us
point
didn't
where-
ever really have them.
right.
Yeah, I don't have, people can call me whatever they want, racist. I know who and what I am, and it just rolls off my back. But when those things begin to impact something that I have dedicated my life to, like the profession of surgery and practice of medicine, I'm not going to put up with that, and I'm going to fight back. And not to belabor the point, but the next generation of doctors. I've got a daughter who's a doctor. Her husband is a surgeon. And I feel a responsibility personally that I need to, if I'm going to retire someday from the field of advocacy, if you will, I want to be able to say, okay, I did the best I could.
I love that.
What I had to turn things around, to push back against this illiberal type of thinking that has got us to where we are today.
I love that. I know my husband jokes all the time. He's serious. He's like, "Okay, what's the cause today, Shayna?" Because invariably, if I just see an injustice, it just infuriates me. But I also believe that I have 2 children, and one day I hope to have grandchildren. Not anytime soon, but I want to leave them in a world that at least I can say, "Hey, I spoke out. I tried to do the best I could.
We want to leave the
I
world
want to leave it
a little
a
bit
better
better
place because I know for me, one of my biggest eye-opening moments, I've always been pretty conservative and I've been pretty opinionated, if you will, my whole life. Anyone that knows me will tell you that. Much to
never would've guessed.
my dad's chagrin a little
Never
bit.
would have guessed, Shayna.
But COVID just There was from that when that all started, and I just something in me was like, there's something off here, and I can remember thinking, okay, that's it, I'm done. I can't just sit back and not say anything anymore. I watched all these things going on, and I thought, you really think the arrow in the Publix grocery store on the aisle is going to prevent someone, if we don't follow the arrow, from getting
That was stupid.
a respiratory illness? So things like that, and I just sat, and then I watched, and I couldn't. I know my kids would get so mad. They'd be like, Mom, shh. I'm like, no, because every time you silence,
I'm smiling because my family had the same rant.
they're like, don't say anything. I'm like, but when we don't say anything, it just continues.
My office had to close for nearly 6 weeks when they had the lockdowns. I had nothing better to do than vent.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I started my blog, and my family practically had to have an intervention to say, Dad, you're coming across like an angry old man. And I said, I am an angry old man.
Yeah.
I feel
we were all
we
angry.
all were angry. It was
I
ridiculous.
think a lot of people that I like to think that the people that were critical thinkers that didn't just follow the herd mentality, I think a lot of us realize there's something very wrong here.
Yes.
And sometimes we couldn't quite put our finger on it, but we knew this is not right. What's happening in this country and under these circumstances. And I started doing a lot of reading and listening to people. I got just a list of people that I learned to trust.
Yes.
Jay Bhattacharya.
But I was just going to say he was my favorite during that. He made so much sense.
Scott Atlas,
Yes.
Peter McCullough.
Yes.
There were a lot of people that were saying things that were counter to what we were being told by the government, by the agencies, by the CDC and the FDA. I kept thinking, okay, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm coming to believe there's something going on very wrong in this country. And I think it's starting to come out now. People were literally. I put a post where I called on Facebook where I called the virus the Wuhan virus.
Yeah, you did.
Wouldn't believe the
I read
blowback
that,
I got on that. And I'm thinking, we have no problem with German measles. We have
Right.
the Spanish flu. Why should we not call it the Wuhan virus when it came from Wuhan?
I think we were a part of, a huge social experiment.
It was.
To see if we would get
It was
in
one
line.
of the greatest injustices in a lot of ways. I watched, kids that were not allowed to go to school. The amount of learning that was not done during that time, not just the subjects in school, but their social learning and things like that. My sisters are both in education, and I know my son had to do. I remember that was the year he had to do geometry online. Let's just suffice to say, when it was time for SATs, the geometry was the one section he had no clue really how to do anything. It was a disservice to everybody.
Yeah.
It was known very early in the pandemic, not to get off on a pandemic conversation, but it's known very early that the COVID virus was unusually mild for children. I mean, incredibly mild for children. In fact, even today we realize that the number of healthy children who got really sick or died from COVID was statistically negligible. And yet we treated it like it was the same risk to them as it was for a 70-year-old man. And that's what kept the kids out of school. And the tragedy is that you can't make up that learning.
You can't.
And the kids that were the most affected were the most vulnerable kids, the inner city kids, the one that didn't have access to virtual,
They didn't get
education.
meals during the day. They didn't get education. There was so many things they missed out on. And I'm not saying it wasn't serious for some patients, like you said, but yeah.
Yeah, that got things rolling for me, And,
Me too.
And at the same time that COVID hit in 2020 was when the George Floyd thing hit, and when the ACS went nuts with their racist claims.
And then we had the whole election debacle.
And it was
and
like
I
this
I fell
perfect
down
storm.
the tinfoil hat rabbit hole, and I've never come back out.
All right. Well, we're going to have to wrap this up this time.
gotta have you back on
30
time.
minutes goes
Yeah.
way too fast
does.
with us, so we're going to have you back another time. But we appreciate you taking the time to visit with us today.
Oh, I'm delighted to be able to do that. I hope I have something worthwhile to say.
You very interesting. Yes, we love talking to you. So thank you again for joining us on the Style Podcast. We'll see you next time.